right. So for SPD, this is AA Ron, Mind Runner, all that jazz. All right, I have not stopped recording, and I want to ask you: do you want to pause and do you want to keep this going?
I feel like we could dive deep into another one.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right, thank you for joining us for another episode of Mental Health Mondays. This is actually part 2 with my guest at this time.
Love it.
This actually is not Thunder Rosa, as you can see, but probably one of Thunder Rosa's biggest fans, as well as me. He's probably behind me in the rankings of just barely, but We're both Thunder Rosa fans. But I'm, of course, talking about the SPD is in the house. He's back for part 2 because part 1 we had to cut short, but we definitely want to continue the conversation. And you can catch SPD on most Thursday nights for Dynamite Download, as well as you got to check out the YouTube page for Our Bronco Life. And we're going to get into it. Welcome back, SPD. Glad you could come back for part 2.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Of course, man. We went down some good rabbit holes on part 1, and I felt like just scratching the surface. So it was a must do for part 2 for sure.
Absolutely. Now, let me just ask you because we're scratching the surface, and we're just barely getting into Mental Health Mondays. We definitely set the stage. We talked about, us being kind of like extroverted introverts, and sometimes an extrovert finds us and pulls us out, kind of thing. We heard the legendary story of meeting Crayfish and meeting your significant other. What have been your experiences with mental health, and do you feel like we're in a time now where we can be more open about speaking about mental health versus when we were younger?
Yeah, to touch the base back on part 1, I know it was more surface level. So being part 2, we're going to dive deep and we're going to go behind the shade. So exclusive. This is one of the very few times SPD has been out the shades. And it's funny you say that before I answer your question, because when we were in All Out 2 All Outs ago and met Thunder Rosa in person, we interviewed her and all that.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the shades on. She's like, "You look so different without your shades." You look like she was like kept staring at me. We actually, Crayfish and I sat down and had dinner with her because she came at the bar and she brought some to-go food, and we sat at a table, just us 3 chatting for, it felt like 2 hours, but it was easily over an hour. And she kept saying it multiple times, like, "You look so different without the shades." But everyone's got a gimmick, and the shades are part of SPD's life. So going behind the shades, and that's kind of a transition. Yeah.
Who is this
It's
guy?
me. It's me.
So
Batman
the
without his mask, like you said.
The SPD has exited the building, and now we have the Sean. Do we have the Sean Downey now? Is that?
This is so am I going? I guess I'm already team babyface, so now I'm changing up my gimmick. So do I am I a team heel now or what?
I don't know. Are you
going
are you dropping the Jungle Boy and becoming Jack Perry, Hollywood Jack Perry? I guess you would need the shades for that.
Hollywood SPD. But the shades are something kind of like a significant thing too, because it's one of those things like people can hide behind those things. And so, growing up as more of a introvert person, I would hide a lot of things under the rug and hide things and not express things and be open. And that's kind of, if you listen to part 1 of, I keep using the 2 prime examples because they're 2 important people in my life, my wife and Crayfish. They would, be so emotional in terms of not like, "Oh, I'm always sad in this," but they would actually express themselves, and being able to express themselves, I admired because I was always afraid to. And so, you can kind of use that thing of like, I always had shades on, I always had sunglasses on, or I always had shades so I can,
cool metaphor.
not necessarily feel certain things or express certain things and just kind of be hidden inside, as things, everyone buries things, and they can eventually add up, or you just constantly bury them forever, which I think as I've grown older, it's so much. I still struggle with it, but it's important to try to verbally express things and release things, or writing them out via text or blogging or things like that. It's
Yeah.
good to I now feel that it is better and it is okay to do that versus keeping those thoughts and feelings inside bottled up, which I did for so long. And so, you know taking the shades off and growing as a person over the past 5, 10, 15 years, where compared to what I was before, I made lots of big leaps, but there's still a lot of work to be done to
Mhm.
be more open with things. And I think it's better because, and then it's one of those things also back in part one of trust,
Yeah.
being able to be vulnerable and trust people is important. And so I think that's where I have my wall up of like, I don't want to be vulnerable if I can't trust you. And so uh, it's gotten much better. So I'm happy. And thanks to just growing as a person, whether it be with outside influence or just, doing different things throughout your day to kind of change it up. Reading is very important too. Like I read
Yes.
a lot of books. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of what you said it rings true for a lot of people. I think a lot of us extroverted introverts, we can be, very passionate people. We can be very, trusting people, but it's that guard because we've been burned, I think, or like
Yeah.
we are very selective of who we let inside our inner circle. I always say I get along with everybody, but I trust only like a hand, like on my hand, maybe not even
Right.
that many people. And it's not that I don't trust. It's not, I think you would agree. It's not that we don't trust other people. It's that we have a certain circle of maybe one or two people that are our people that we can
Yeah.
truly open up to.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. I
And it's
think
very
that
important to have that. And it's
Mhm.
easier. I guess I felt like it's easier as I'm older because the people that are in my life are more mature and
Mhm.
more trustworthy.
Oh,
Looking at back at high school and college days, yes, people are so flaky and kind of have their own, mentality or their own best interest in mind. And now that you have people that mature, whether it be career wise, personal wise, family wise, like you turn into more a complete person.
absolutely. I already know I wouldn't like the 20-year-old version of myself because I thought I knew everything.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I got this world figured out.
Oh yeah.
24 years old, I go out into the world and then I get my teeth kicked in. So around 30, 31, that's when I'm starting to go, oh, okay, this is how the world really is.
All right.
But no, I
Exactly.
think it's important. I think it is important to like not so much it's interesting. How do you feel about looking back at your life and do you have regrets about that you wish you did differently? Or do you feel like those instances in your life were learning experiences that led to where you are today?
I feel it's cliche to be a no regrets, no regrets. But yes, I think where I'm at today, you wouldn't be without the mistakes you made in the past. So yes, it's cliche to say no regrets, but also, I mean, I wish I didn't get in this trouble, or I wish I didn't make this stupid decision. I wish, of course, but also getting in trouble in certain levels with different people kind of wised me up and snapped me out. Because if I didn't, let's say, get caught doing this or getting that, then maybe I would have gone down a deeper hole to push the limits even more and more and more. So, um, don't want to. Yes, I made stupid mistakes that I wish I could have not done, but the same
Mhm.
thing, like those mistakes led me to a different path quicker than I may have gotten to, and
What
prevented me from making other mistakes. It's
what
similar
are
down this similar bad path.
what are some of those, or maybe not specifics because I don't want you to get in trouble or anything, but what are some of the things you've learned about yourself in this self-reflection that I mean we've kind of talked about the introverted extrovert, but what are some things that you feel are that this version of SPD is the improved version to earlier?
I would say, yeah, I had to think about that for like
Now this is
more
after
overall.
your
But
male stripper days.
yeah,
This is
well,
after the exotic dancer time. Yeah.
I think just being able to see the big picture. Sorry about that background noise.
Good.
Being able to see the big picture in life versus kind of it is nice to be in the moment, but
Mhm.
I think about now that I've lived and learned some things, like being able to uh, think about more than just myself or just my instant gratifications. I think that was, when you're younger, you live for the moment, which it's good to
Mhm.
still be living in the moment, being present, every hour, every day, which I struggle with. But seeing the big picture and what things could be like in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I think that kind
Nice.
of helped me open my eyes a little bit more in that part sense. Um, Other than that, just I feel like I'm more cautious with maybe like my health and risk taking, whether it be like, oh, I don't want to go skydiving or do this. It's more of like be more cautious in the sense of, obviously these are great thrill seeking things, and I like to have some thrill seeking things, but I feel like I'm a little bit more cautious because I enjoy my life and my family's life and all that. So maybe
You
a
don't
little
want
on the
to
cautious
do
end.
anything to ruin it or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know it's kind of maybe living a little bit on the scared side to an extent, but it's not. I feel like it's not robbing me of any joy. But that's
I think it says a lot because I think that's because you feel like you have something to lose.
yeah,
Like that shows
yeah,
value in what you have now. When you
yeah. Good
find
point.
that level of happiness, I feel the same way. It's like, you know, I was very careless with myself, with my health, with a lot of things. I still kind of, I was still cautious on a lot of other stuff, but like now I'm very happy with Full Tilt Deb. She's a goddess.
Yeah,
And just that I'm in a good place mentally. Physically, I'm hitting the gym. I'm starting to get back in there, but mentally, I'm really like where I'm at. But yeah, I feel like that's a testament to y- having value in what you have. You don't want to do anything to lose that or mess it up.
yeah,
And
yeah. That's for sure a great point.
I there's a quote from Tulsi Gabbard, and people have different opinions, and this isn't a political statement, but there's something she said that because she apparently was very shy, was very
Mhm.
introverted but she obviously she got into politics and public speaking, for an introvert to do that. But she made the
Yeah,
comment that when she started really going for like political office or being an activist, she changed her way of thought. And I've tried to use this with the podcast is when you feel nervous about doing something or you feel nervous about speaking, if
hmm
you stop and take yourself out of it and just think about what you're doing and not who you are, then that removes the embarrassment, removes it could remove the nervousness. Like, I didn't start this mental health Mondays to become, super famous or to become the next Joe Rogan or to become the next whatever. I did this because
right.
I want to share people's stories about mental health and about and actually speaking about mental health, which for so much of my life it was for verboten to really talk about. You were labeled crazy if you mentioned, hey, I'm struggling with this or I'm struggling with that. It
Or
was
you're going
almost
to
like, oh,
therapy.
exactly. Therapy used to
Yeah,
be such a bad word.
right.
But I feel like it's so much more open. I feel like talking it out is such a, being and putting yourself out there. It's such a different take now in society about it. Now, I think sometimes some people, there are cases where people overshare and in some cases play up their mental issues for attention. And I see that where there's some
Right.
folks that really kind of they kind of overstate what they're going through to kind of beg for those, oh, no, you're okay, support. But for the most part now, I feel like it's really good, like you said, to just talk these things out
hmm
and get them off your chest. And it's what, like, do you feel like Did you feel the same way growing up, that it was kind of like beat into our heads to just bottle it up and suck it up? You know, whether it was just men don't cry, or men have to be a certain way, or just in general people have to be a certain way.
I don't think it wasn't never necessarily like encouraged or taught to me like, oh, you don't show your feelings. I think I just naturally didn't, because maybe I was embarrassed to.
Yeah.
And so both of my parents are not that extrovert and emotionally outgoing per se. So I guess that kind of naturally trickled down to us, kind of, getting mad and then not talking about it, getting, saying something, not talking about it, not addressing the problem, sweeping under the rug and moving on. And so that still goes on today, which is a trickle effect. And that's a huge struggle with me is, not trying to address the elephant in the room or address the situation versus just trying to, dance around it. And so
Yeah.
that's always been a struggle and I would love to keep, or I am still constantly working on facing difficult emotional challenges. I hate sad movies. I only want to
Mhm.
watch happy endings. So, and then my wife's like, you gotta feel something. You gotta feel. I'm like, I don't want to. It's like it's something I try to avoid
Yeah.
because I don't like that feeling. And even though it's a natural and it's okay, it's a tough emotion to achieve and handle and accept for me.
How do you feel about funerals?
Oh, the worst. Death is the biggest fear. So it's horrible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's, I think for me, I didn't go to my grandfather's funeral, and I regretted it, but at the time in my life, I was young and stupid. But
Yeah.
to me, it was like I knew there was going to be so much grief that
Yeah.
it was going to be overwhelming. And
Yeah.
then, and so and when I went to my grandmother, his wife, my grandmother's funeral, I counted it kind of as a double. I kind of spoke at the funeral and talked about both of them, and I
Yeah.
apologized for it. But do you feel like sometimes, do you feel like you take on some of the emotions that are projected around you?
In certain situations, I would say so. It's hard for me to well, kind of circling back to what I just said, it's just hard for me to accept the sadness in I mean, when a couple years ago we had to put our dog down, which we didn't even have like full it was at my parents' house most of the time because our landlord and whole different story, but
Yeah,
essentially it was like our dog. But even though my parents fostered it pretty much 90% of the year, every year for many years. And that was one of the hardest things I ever did. And I didn't want to do it. I wanted to pass the buck. I said, no,
yeah,
no, you just you handle this, like almost to my parents. But then I was like, no, this is ours. We can't put this burden on them. And then my wife and I did it. And I was so glad we did, but it was like such a haunting thing.
mhm.
Yeah. To
That's
be in
gotta
the
be
room.
that's gotta be terrible.
Yeah.
It's almost like having to say goodbye to your child.
Yeah.
You know,
I know it's
that's
just a pet, but I mean, it's not a grandparent or anything like that, or parent or any family, but our first true. Oh, actually, it was like our second, like really hard test as a married couple, emotionally.
no. That's it, it's and if a lot of people talk about pets, and they get there's some people that don't understand how a pet can be part of a family. And but I do think that that's
Yeah,
like how people see pets are a testament to who they are, as well as like uh,
yeah,
I think sometimes you get to a point where you're like, we've had to put a couple of our pets down, and it's one of those things where like Full Tilt Deb will say she knows when they're telling us it's time. We have to we can't be selfish and want them around for to avoid our grief.
yep,
If
yep.
their quality of life is there. Do you have a close relationship with your parents?
I would say, I mean, being in the same house right now with them,
They're
visiting them,
wonderful.
not as where I'd want to be. And
Okay.
then I think it could be also my fault too, not being active with seeking out communication and things like that, and being more open. So I feel like I need to change the cycle. Which we're gonna go out to eat. I'm gonna take them out to eat after this. So maybe I'll start. Only you got to before you can move mountains as long as you start one stone at a time, right?
Yeah.
So
You,
Um,
you can't eat an elephant in one bite. You gotta,
that's
you
right.
gotta
So
take those morsels.
I mean, I feel like everyone would always say they would want a better one, and I definitely seek that. It's hard because my wife doesn't have a relationship with her family at all. Well, her dad's passed, and her mom is not in our life, unfortunately. And
Mm.
so, to actively push more of a relationship with my parents, I almost, which I shouldn't, I almost feel a little bad in a sense of like, if I'm talking to my parents every day and then she has, no one, even though my parents are her parents, we're all family, but it's still not the same as the bloodline love.
You
So
said bloodline. I promise this. We're not going to go wrestling on this episode. But yeah. But does she feel like she's like their daughter, like adopted daughter, kind of, or is there still kind of a?
doesn't feel the love like I would feel the love.
Mhm.
I guess
And
the
that
expectations are more than what she gets. And that goes with someone being so emotionally available, my wife, in my family, so non-emotionally available. So it's nothing like in someone's mindset, like, oh, I sent you a card or I said this, like that's like being emotionally available versus like someone else might think, oh, I need a hug, I need this, I need you to do this, I need this,
yeah,
like five love languages. And so if you don't feel
yes,
those five love languages or the ones that you speak, um, versus giving and receiving those one of those five or multiple of those five love languages, you're not going to feel emotionally loved or whole. So it's a tough one.
What are the 5 love languages?
It's quality time, communication, gifts, acts of service, and I forget what the other one is. Have you ever read the book?
I've heard of it. I have not read the book, but that's definitely going to be on my list.
Yeah, so
I
it talks about like
yeah.
what you need and what you give. Like I like to do like I like to give acts of service. My wife loves to give compliments and I love to receive compliments. And so but she loves to receive compliments, but I'm not an emotional person of giving them constantly,
Yeah.
which is a bummer because I think it, but I don't speak it. And that's a struggle that I always have is, you know, I wish I could say everything I speak, say everything I think to an extent, but I don't, and that's something I constantly working on with our relationship is being able to speak more of my thoughts versus like, oh, of course I think you look beautiful, but I didn't say it, but saying it means way more than thinking it.
Yeah, it's kind of like you already. It's like, duh. I know
Right.
you're beautiful. Like, how come you? And that I think that's the balance in a relationship. It
Yeah.
really comes down to communication. Like I know with Full Tilt Deb and I, there's that balance where like I get we're coming. We have nicknames for each other. She's
Yeah.
Fuego and I'm Tranquilo. Like where she lights a fire under my ass when I need it, and I tell us to chill out when we need to chill out.
Right.
And but there's so much more to that too. It's like I grew up with my parents divorced when I was 11, and my mom was she was a hugger. She was very like emotional support. She was very emotional, like she was very like, oh, like if I stumped my toe, she's like, oh, are you okay? And then but my dad, when I'd stub my toe, he'd be like, walk it off, that kind of thing. And but then when my
Right.
mom left, I actually lived with my dad. I moved with my dad, and then 2 years later he remarried, and my stepmother didn't have the hug thing in her. She didn't have the warmth,
Hmm.
the attention. But where my mom kind of slacked a little bit on the like the not to say gifts, but like my stepmom was much more business. Like she would do things for us her way, but it was like it was almost like you need to appreciate me because I'm making this meal, and I'm buying
Yeah.
this thing for you, and I'm buying your clothes, and I'm doing this, and it was like I was seeking the more maternal stuff, but she didn't read it that way. She was like, why don't you appreciate me because look at what I've done for you? But then I'm saying,
Exactly.
yeah, but you didn't do this. You didn't provide me with this. And for a long time I resented that, but I really, only recently I've realized it's like it's just different personalities. And it's like you
Right.
said, it's those different love languages that you
Yeah,
sometimes
she's
have to.
acts of or gifts, which my mom is like that too. I'm trying to look up the exact ones for as while we're talking gifts, and that's one of those things. Like I love gifts, but that's not what that's not going to fill my. It's temporary. You know,
Yeah.
I'd rather you put down the phone and just chill and hang with me, or give me a physical touch. I think physical touch is another one of those. Um, what are the five love languages? Five love languages are words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, acts of service, and receiving gifts. And so
Mhm.
it's a book that came out in 1992. And so it's a good read to know kind of what you need and what you give. And then it kind of helps you understand the person that you are with of kind of what they need and what they give. And so it's a good recommend it for sure.
Yeah, highly recommended. So for the Mental Health Mondays book club, the five love languages, we highly recommend.
Yeah.
And that and what do you feel about communication with a spouse, or maybe not even just a spouse, but in any relationship? How important is communication?
Me as an okay communicator. I've gotten so much better, but that was kind of the forced communication in our relationship when I first dated my wife because we had long distance. And so
Mm,
this was back in '08 when we met and then dated and then got married in 2010. But before we got married, the whole dating phase was long distance. New York, she was in New York and I was in Michigan. And so we were forced to communicate uh less easy than it is today
yeah,
via phone and stuff. We had to like buy webcams and
Skype.
webcam and make time and so yes, and text and message and stuff. So the forced communication made our relationship stronger. I feel like I don't
Yeah,
recommend long distance. It sucks because you miss someone so much, but it also makes your heart that much stronger. And I feel like it made us appreciate each other so much more because I've seen so many relationships where it's like, oh, my girlfriend or boyfriend live right down the street. You know, we see each other every day. We go hang out, sit on the couch,
mhm,
watch this show, watch this movie. Then I go home or whatever it may be. The easiness, the convenience of it. My wife had a girlfriend that she said she wouldn't date anyone that doesn't live in her town because it's too far of a drive. And so
mhm.
it's like you're so close minded. Like, are you kidding me? We're
Especially with
dating
today's
someone 600,
technology.
yeah,
Yeah,
650 miles apart that we'd made this relationship work. And there'd be months, weeks and months of that would go by where we couldn't see each other in person. So, um, where there's a will, there's a way. And I think it's almost like, I don't, my wife's watched it. I don't think it's like some blind dating show or where they
oh
learn to
yeah,
a wall between them. They don't see each other till the end, where they learn to like about each other. I don't know. It's some stupid
yeah.
Netflix
It
show.
is like a blind date. I think it is some kind of Love Is Blind.
Yeah, Love
I
is
think
Blind. Yeah,
that's what it is. Yeah,
it's almost like you can get so distracted by appearance. Obviously, that's like the first thing attraction is appearance, but it's also like the forced communication. Like that show, you're forced to communicate versus
yeah.
being just the physicalness to it.
Well, you
Um,
get to know them as a person too before you really get caught up in the intimacy. Like I think
yeah.
sometimes a lot of relationships they fall in love, but they don't take those steps to get to know the
Lust.
person. Yeah, they get caught up in
Yes.
that. Full Tilt Deb and I met online. We met
Yeah.
through a bulletin board, and then we did started doing radio together. And I was
Okay.
in Virginia Beach and she was Chicago, and we started talking. We really started hitting it off, and then before you knew it, we were chatting. And of course Skype just
Yeah.
made everything so much better. We
For
would
sure.
do corny stuff like we would watch movies together, and we would both go to Netflix, and we both 3, 2, 1 time it so that
Oh,
it's
that's
playing the
great.
same time, and we would like rip on it and comment. Sometimes one of us would lag, so we'd pause for each other,
Yeah.
and but there was for the first, like when we first just started talking, it was a friendship thing. We
Yeah.
were just getting along, but we were really clicking, and we shared pictures of each other, and it was one of those things where we finally said we got to meet, because we both felt like this was going somewhere,
Right.
and you've got it because like that Love Is Blind. I think I've seen some clips where this lady was talking about how this guy was the love of her life, and she can't wait to see what he looks like. And as soon as the lights came on, and he wasn't a bad looking guy, but as soon as the lights came on, she went, oh, and she left him because I think she had this image in her mind of what he looked like,
Sure, yeah,
versus
Hercules or something.
and it was, I mean, he wasn't a bad looking guy. I just think she had this image and he didn't look like that. And she went, oh, no. And then
Right.
but yeah, I think that you really limit yourself if you're like, oh, they're only going to be in my town. Plus, you're kind of, I mean, there are certain things, there are certain absolutes. When I was in my 20s, I said I'd never date a woman that smokes. I said, if they smoke, that's a deal breaker for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my wife smokes. She doesn't smoke in the house. She goes outside to smoke. But it's like, when you get older, you really start to realize, don't you start to realize as you get older what's really important?
Yeah, for sure. Of course.
What is really important for life, for relationships, for happiness?
Gosh, that's like $1 million question too.
Definitely a Dalai Lama type question.
I feel like
Or maybe not.
happiness comes within. There's a lot of people that create their own misery with whether it be their job or their living situation and things like that. And everyone's guilty of that in some kind of level. And so also just seeing the joy in life. Like there's this, I'll have to send it to you. There's this little cartoon I saw, and he's like, I think he's like, it's in his stomach or holding. He's like happiness, and he's like, where did you get that? I want some. He's like, I created it myself, or something along those
Oh, that's
lines
deep.
of that. And
Yeah.
I have it saved on my phone, and I like that. And so I have to take a lot of steps back and just realize, wow, like, we live in a free country. We have like running water and like certain, being able to travel the world, like things opening your eyes. You take so much for granted too, whether it be electric, like the little things of being able to walk. And so it's like, the mindset of trying to create your own happiness is a real thing. And I've had many talks with Crayfish and other friends of, them going down, hating their jobs and, the grind. And of course it sucks, but what is it providing you to do other than that? A family, a house, a car, going, to do this and that, and great restaurants and things like that, perks like that. So, there are so many people that have 10 times less than what I have, or even more, and are, way happier. And the opposite is true. People have 10 times more than I have and are extremely miserable and hate their life and are just like evil people. And so it's back to the mindset, to balance out your mindset and happiness. And like it's a hard thing to do, and so that's why it's important to try to keep a clear mind. Like every day I wake up and I do use the Calm app and do a 10-minute meditation, and I do like a stretch during it, so I'm like loosening up my body. So that's one thing, is just trying to keep the body moving, and then try to clear the mind for the day, because it's so easy to go down the rabbit hole of a monkey mind and just like 80 thought bubbles, like this what I got to do today, what do I got to do today, or what's this and this, or when am I going to be able to sleep, I'm tired, I wake up, and all this stuff. So it's like to do something first thing in the morning to try to set your mind for the day. It's a step forward, but of course throughout the day things pop up and you go down different rabbit holes. So like my morning routine is listen to the Calm app, do a morning stretch, cold shower, and then I will do read. I've been reading this book. I've probably gone through it like 4 times, but it's called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And so it's 100 pages, 100 chapters, and they're literally like 1 or 2 pages long. It takes you a minute to read. And so every day I'll just read one of those to start.
Another book for the book club.
Yeah.
Put it right
Don't
there.
Sweat the Small Stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'll roll through like different other books, different self-help books I'll read through, or I'm trying to read the Bible from cover to cover. So it's been I'll just read like a couple scriptures, like I'm going in order. So it's just like, I'll read like a couple verses every day as well, and then if I have more time, I'll read like an additional book. So it's like different reading snippets, physical part of it, mental part of it, with reading, meditation, and cold exposure. Because doing a cold shower and a cold plunge is challenging but very rewarding. I love it.
Yeah, Rogan says he does a cold plunge every morning, and he says he hates it, but it's like it. He says once it's done, he's
You feel
so
great.
chill the rest of the day. I mean,
Have you done a
literally,
cold
but
shower?
I've done cold showers. I prefer hot showers, but
Most people
you're
do.
you're talking to a VMI graduate at the Virginia Military Institute, and yeah, there were some cold showers for my first year. There was some real just you had
So
30 seconds to get everything clean, and there was no heat. But yeah,
challenge you to do that. Challenge you
yeah,
to in the morning, hop in the shower. Just you can start at 30, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. As cold as it gets,
yep,
barely turn on the faucet, hop on in, get your face, your back, your chest, or whatever, work your way up to 2 minutes. But if you just do it for 20, 30 seconds, it's going to suck. But as soon as you get out, you feel like, oh, I don't need coffee, or my skin feels like tight and alive.
yeah.
And you're like, okay, I'm ready to go. So I want you to do that this week a couple
We'll
times.
do. All right. You hear it. And I'll have a report on how I feel on the next Dynamite download. I'll do a report on how that is. And
Yeah.
I'm either gonna come in going, yeah, man, it's pretty cool, or I'm gonna be cussing you out. But yeah,
Oh, it's so dang cold still.
you and your freaking go take a cold shower, SPD. But no, there's a lot to that. There's a lot. There's such a connection between that body, mind, and spirit. I think a lot of times we yeah, like if you have to make sure that you're taking care of all three. If you're
Hmm.
if you're eating junk food, then that's going to not only affect your physical health, but it's going to affect your brain too.
Yeah.
Whenever I eat really bad junk food, like I almost feel like there's a slush in my brain. Like it's almost
Just
like
for real.
there's
Yeah.
sludge going
Yeah.
around there. But when I like eat healthier and I'm more active, I feel better. I feel like there's more air coming through. Deb would argue there's a lot of air going through my ears, but that's another story. But no, like I feel healthier, and being in
Yeah.
spirituality is I feel it's important. Um, how do you feel about the importance of spirituality in regards to mental health, in regards to in regards to and not necessarily a specific denomination, but do you feel spirituality is important for positive mental health?
I 100%. I think that it's helped me because there's different phases through my life where I was more involved in religion than others, and there was times
Mhm.
where it was zero, and then times where it was 100%, and then now I think the biggest thing was meeting my wife, who was very involved in her church and a very heavy God loving woman, which is great, and so it really helped me open my eyes back up, and so I think you know seeing isn't always believing, and believing that there's a higher power and hope and testimonies all throughout the lifespan of just people being saved and just being healed mentally
Yeah.
or physically. It gives you it gives you great hope and excitement, and I think that's when I listen to worship music, it really gets me in a great mood of just like wanting to like help people or just smile more, just kind of just feel like so much better inside and out
Yeah.
when I hear like these like uplifting songs, which it doesn't just have to be, worship music, but there's some good country songs that make me feel the same way as well. But there's and then when I hear certain people speak, um, there are a few pastors I really, really like that just really just like hit. Like
Yeah.
you can find ones that are like, okay, whatever, but there are ones that like really, really hit and that really uh fill your cup, which I wish you could stay full as soon as I'm done listening to them throughout the week.
Yeah.
It runs out and it's easy to kind of move on to the next thing. But there are times where you gotta just listen to the words and just have like great hope and it really uplifts my mood and spirit for sure.
There's something to um that feeling of no of knowing there's a higher power taking care of the things you can't control. Because I
Yeah,
think a lot of times we worry about the things we can't control too much,
right.
and we lose sight of the things that we can. And do you feel like a lot of people, when in regards to religion, get too caught up in the dogma, and they kind of lose sight of the overall message? A
Yeah, I
little
think
bit.
there's a lot of part-timers too, and which I'm
Mhm,
not necessarily, I'm gonna say full-timer, but there's a lot of there's 2 sides to it. Like, there's a lot of there could be, like, the mainstream stuff that's like, "Oh, it's cool to go to this church." Like, when I was in New York, I went to Hillsong, New York, and that was, like,
mhm,
the cool thing to do because it was, like, this new thing. They started in Australia, first one in New York, and now there's all this controversy about the pastor that was there. I
mhm.
don't know if you ever heard anything about it, but we could talk about that off air, but all this controversy, but the pastor that was there, I thought he was fantastic, and I gained a lot from him, but now there's all this stuff of whatever he's going through.
Yeah,
So there's like being the latest and greatest, but who at the other side of that coin, it's like, who cares if this is like a popular thing to do and it's working for people, then okay, it's bringing people to like help others.
yeah.
Not,
If I think people that try to take down, like, if somebody's happy, like, why? And we talk about this in the wrestling community, but
yeah,
it's like in everything. It really blows my mind that one person's happiness is bothering somebody else. Now, I
right,
can understand we've talked about the toxic positivity where it's like, aren't you happy today? I'm
right,
happy. That's different. That's insane. But like, if like I say, oh, I really like pineapple, and then someone says, what do you have against kiwi?
yeah,
And I'm like, well, no, I yeah, there's and this I see a lot of people that are like, I've had debates with people that claim to be atheists, but the more I talk to them, they're like, they're they're almost its own religion in their atheism.
hmm,
Like, they're a devout atheist, and to me, I've been around this world long enough to not, I question everything, but I don't rule out much because there's none of us really know for sure what's going to happen when we go on.
right,
We
for
have
sure,
our faith, we have our feelings, and it's really hard to describe unless you've actually experienced moments like that where
yeah,
you're like, oh, okay, eye-opening moments. It's really hard to explain, and I think there's something to that because if God just said, "Hey, I'm here," then it's almost like you're reading the last page of the mystery novel, so you're spoiled, and so now life doesn't really have that high stakes anymore.
right,
And people just, well, I had a bad day, I'm going to kill myself and blah, go to heaven. And but then
right,
there's also that, because I think God in the divine sense, and a lot of people have different views, but
hmm,
ultimately I feel like it's we need to question, because that's how you become stronger in any belief, whether it's religion, whether it's a political belief, what have you. Is you got it's steel man's your argument. But I feel like there's a there's a strength in that, in letting things that are beyond your control, leaving it to God. Jesus take the wheel kind of thing.
hmm,
We can squabble on the eat fish on Friday or not, or that, this, that, and the other thing. But those, I think it feels like the underlying message is, you know, don't be a dick, that kind of thing. Don't be a dick, and just, be. And I wanted to circle back because we could dive into religion.
right,
But I want to circle back real quick to gratitude. And
yeah,
this is one of those things where, I'm such a bastard because I am a cynical optimist. And if you follow what I mean, where I can be very skeptical and cynical and be kind of like, when somebody comes up with something new that they're, hey, just be grateful. I'm like, shut up. What's this guy talking about? But I think there is some, like Chris Van Vliet, he's always in his podcast with gratitude, say something you're grateful for. But there does seem to be something to that, and I don't want to be a jerk about it and dismiss it. But do you feel, how important is gratitude? We talked about that earlier a little bit, but like, do you feel like we take a lot for granted, and do you feel like focusing on gratitude is is something we should truly try to do every day?
everyone needs to be more grateful for everything. It's one of those things that I struggle with a lot too, is that one. So uh funny you bring that word up because for the past, I want to say five 5 to 8 years, I can't remember when I started. We started uh, pred- picking a word of the year to use. And so it's like at the after New Year's, like pick a word of the year. And I used to write it on the back of my phone, which I should. And so we would talk about it, my wife and I would ask some of my friends as well as like an activity. I'm like, think of a word of the year where you want to focus on this year. And one year was gratitude. Other years it was like present. This year is joy for me. And
Wow.
so, well, actually, one of the other years was yes for me. Well, I think my first one was
Yes.
yes, and not just because I'm one of my favorites, Brian Danielson, but because I was more of a, oh, let's go out, nah, like kind of turning things down, and I'm
Yeah.
like, now I wanted to be like, what happens if I did say yes to not everything, not being like a pushover, but just being more open. Oh, like, oh, we're gonna go here. It may not be what I want to do, but it's something asking me to do. So, try it. So it was something to really kind of focus on that. And so that's why I picked yes. But this year's joy, because I want to have more joy. And I also want to be a joy giver, not a joy stealer. And so,
Oh, nice.
whether it be with maybe a sad face or not actively participating in something, that's stealing joy, I feel like. And so I focus on, my focus was to be on a joy giver and a joy maker versus a joy stealer. So that's what was my word of the year was joy. But back to gratitude, it's so easy to not be grateful for your things, and back to the things of just the little things in life, like a car that works, your feet that work. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was playing play hockey, and like I had a like bruised rib, or felt like a cracked rib or something. And it was like the first time I ever had like that kind of injury. And I'm like, I can't even like get out of bed without like really pain, because I can't like lean forward or like these deep breaths. I'm like, just something like that. I'm like, being able to breathe like without struggle, like something
Yeah.
as simple as that, where you do thousands of times a day. So it's like it it's hard, or it's super easy to forget about those things. And so in my morning, when I did my morning stretch, I used to say like mantra. I'd be like, love, patience, kindness, gratitude, present. And so I would say those things, like I do a plank for like a minute. I do a plank for a minute, and I'd say those things over and over and over for a full minute out loud, those 5 things. And so I haven't done that, which now I need to go back to do that, because so I can say them out loud. It's one thing to think them, but I think you put it out verbally. It's another thing to help to act on them.
I'll commit to the cold shower, but I'm not going to try the plank just yet, because for me it won't be a plank, it'll be a beached whale. But I'll be like, oh yeah, gratitude. But there's something to that though with the gratitude. I feel like sometimes we get caught up and we take things for granted, and then we don't realize how much we should be grateful till we almost lose it, or till we do lose it.
Right.
You lose a loved one, or you lose a job, or your car breaks down, or you rip your toenail off your toe. That it's like,
Exactly.
oh, I'm grateful for my toenails now. I guess I better take better care of them when I
Right.
slip in the shower. But yeah, I feel like there is that gratitude, and sometimes you're grateful for when a jet doesn't fly over your house and during a podcast. But I feel like there's also where do you stand on the notion of like manifestation? Because like I feel like some people, they manifest a dream, but they don't want to put the work in to achieve it. Do you follow what I'm saying? Like, have you heard of that?
I
And
feel
and
like
I
I'm
don't.
a very good encourager for that. And so, as someone who's married to a performer, who's seen extreme struggles of countless no's and very few yeses, and the constant work and the emotional roller coaster, I'm a good cheerleader and encourager for that part. In terms of personal ones, I don't necessarily. I mean, I tell myself it as well. Like, okay, like let's just, for example, the most recent one I'm thinking about was like my last hockey game. I'm like, tonight I'm gonna get tonight's
Yeah.
point night. I'm gonna get some points. I'm gonna get points. I'm gonna like, I keep telling my that like the whole game, like I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. So I'm like telling myself like that to kind of hype myself up in that sense. But there hasn't been a time where it's just like, I'm gonna do a backflip. I'm gonna do a backflip. I'm gonna do a backflip, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Like it's been a while since I've had a really manifest like a larger scale goal. But I think I enjoy being. I do enjoy other people's successes that I'm close with. So it's nice to see someone be able to pursue their dreams and it succeed in that sense. Example, my wife, like it's been, that's she's a performer. And so when she gets the opportunity to perform, like I know that's what's filling her heart. And so that fills my heart.
I almost have to do this because this is not a wrestling podcast, but I do want to use Thunder Rosa as an example of somebody who, when she finds success, she lifts everybody with her. Like as soon as she started really making a name for herself in AEW, immediately all of her Mission Pro people, like all the girls from Mission Pro, started showing up on Dark and Elevation and started showing up for these matches. And I think a lot of what she's a great example of what a lot of us do. The comedy scene in Austin, Texas now with, Joe Rogan opened a big comedy club there. And like comedians now, they're developing a community where they lift each other up. And I kind of, I encourage that in like the podcast sphere where, we kind of want to lift creators up and talk each other up. Like I'll Dynamite Download and Top Rope Squishy and I'll promote this. We want to lift each other up. And I think that's, you become more successful. Everybody, you almost like it, instead of being, it eliminates that bitterness of, oh, look at this person being successful. It's like you share in that moment when someone someone else is successful, like, yes, that's awesome. And I think the more people have that mindset, it's the better we all are. The better we all become with that kind of mindset. And gratitude is important, as well as, and I think there's a difference between, just I'm going to manifest versus like a goal setting. Like, hey, this is what I'm doing today. This is what I'm going for today. Because, you have those like, rubbing the 12 crystals and, burning the incense. And then you feel like, okay, that's all the work I've done today to become, something. You got to put the work in.
It's a good mindset for sure to have, because as the tide rises, all the ships rise with it too.
Yes.
So you want to be able to, it's a way better feeling to cheer on others versus being resentful. It's easy to be resentful in I'll use the two examples of what I'm mostly involved in, Dynamite Download. So it's like, oh, this person is on this podcast, or this person got this interview, or whatever it may be. Like, how come we're not, or how come we don't get press passes or whatever? But it's like, you see these people doing that, they deserve it. Whether, their hustle and their grind and their dedication, like, okay, good for them. And same for our Bronco community. Everyone's unique in their own way. So obviously you all want, big things to happen with whatever you're involved in. There's people getting free Broncos that are in the media social community to use for multiple years. It's like, oh, of course that'd be awesome. It's easy to be resentful. Why are they? And, my videos have more views, or I have this, close to this. It's like, there's a reason behind it, but it's so much better to cheer on and become teammates instead of enemies. Or not, or fake enemies, so it's better to cheer them on, like you said, and to celebrate wins as a community versus individual.
Is there beef? Does the Bronco Society have beef with the Blazers Society? I mean, is there
no Blazers? No, the Wranglers
Blazers?
That would be the number one.
Oh, Wranglers, yeah.
the Jeep Wrangler. There are a lot of people that. Not so much anymore, but I would get a lot of hate comments of, oh, the Jeep is so much better, like on our YouTube or different posts online. And so I just delete. I don't even go down those rabbit holes anymore. Obviously it's easy to get your hair on your arms kind of standing up if someone says like a hateful comment, like, oh, I'm gonna respond in another hateful way if you're Jab. There are times I have responded, but most of the time I'll just delete block. Like, you're giving me views or whatever. Obviously you're watching, but like, really, shut up and move on.
It's hard because, God, like, I'll read something on Twitter, or now X. It's not Twitter anymore. I'll read something there or in a message somewhere, and I'm like, immediately, exactly, X. I immediately my brain is like, oh, look at this MFer right now. Or like Kenny Omega would say, look at this mother father. Who do they think they are? But then like I've deleted more messages than I've actually posted. And there's been a few that have slipped through where I'm like, man, why did I even get involved? But it's so much easier just to, tune out the negativity. And I don't think I mean, it's important to be critical. I mean, to talk about, Dynamite Download is a great example of this, where the Dynamite Download, you guys you're not just that toxic positivity. You'll be critical when you want to be critical, but there's a difference between being critical of something and being nasty about it, being negative about it. Like, because I think constructive, honest criticism, respectful, honest criticism is important to have.
Right.
And I think it's how do you balance that, being real and honest about something without losing the positivity?
I think you can. Well, that's one of those, you talk about the rabbit holes and stuff. While Crayfish has taken an extended hiatus of Twitter life because of it's gotten too deep into him. It's taken it too personal. It's gone down those rabbit holes. So our Twitter life has slacked a lot because he was the main spearhead of that. And so I'm curious. I can't wait for him to get on your show and talk about some of this stuff, because I read these things and it's I let it stay on the surface. I'm like, whatever. You don't mean anything to me. You're just some troll. You're this, and move on and move on and move on. But it's what was the main question? Sorry about
no, it's fine. How do you balance how do you balance being real and honest with staying positive? Because I mean, you almost have to maybe not let in the negativity, but sometimes being positive and let me rephrase the question. Is there ever a point where staying positive and being real and honest conflict with each other?
Yeah, well, it's also easy because off air we just talk smack nonstop. Just kidding.
Yeah, right.
Right. No, so we get all the negativity off air. It's because I mean the truth is the truth. So if you dance around that, you can't necessarily hide from that in certain situations. But I think honesty and positivity. So those are pretty similar in a sense, where you're being honest with yourself and changing your mindset to be positive. I guess that's I'm trying to just really digest all that.
Maybe positivity is the result.
Yeah.
Like for example, I'm not as much of a Bryan Danielson fan as you guys. And that doesn't I understand. I get it. I understand the hype. I get it. I know his style of wrestling is blah blah blah. You're great. Full Tilt Deb, not so much. She has some very colorful words for him, but that's a whole other story. But your joy for Bryan Danielson shouldn't take away from my,
for sure,
lukewarm about him, and vice versa. So it's like I can be honest with my feelings about it or my take on him, but also be respectful to your take as well. So I think it's if you're respectfully honest, that will generate positivity. Does that make sense?
It does, because if you see me being a total mark and hyping up Danielson and me as a person being excited and just thinking that 15-minute match was the best thing you saw in months or all year.
Yeah.
It's natural as a person to feel something because you're communicating, vice versa. Like say you're CM Punk marker. Who's your favorite wrestler in AEW right now, I guess?
Kenny Omega.
So me too. I love Kenny. So if I wasn't that big of a fan, but you were just so excited about this amazing match he had with Will Ospreay and all this. And I'm just you can't help, but if you are a person with feelings, be oh, wow, this joy that he's bringing, we can share a common bridge of, obviously it's the umbrella of wrestling.
Yeah.
I may not be my favorite wrestler, but he's bringing this so much joy. So it's I got to feel some positivity at least, and some happiness for you to have that joy of something, the same bond that we're sharing of the overall umbrella of wrestling. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh no, absolutely. Like we both like AEW brought me back as a wrestling fan.
Me too. Yeah.
And so that in itself. Now, I'm a huge fan of the goofy wrestling for life, and I think I'm not sure if you're there. I can't remember. I think Crayfish is kind of against the goofy wrestling.
Here's the thing, like that dance break, whatever,
Yeah.
I hated it, but he liked it, which was surprising. I thought he was gonna
Yeah.
hate it. I mean, I'm a sucker, like the DX movement and like that comedy stuff and the Kurt Angle stuff.
Yeah.
Like I loved all that comedy stuff. The goofy stuff now that I watch or we watch in AEW, like gone stale of. And so it's like more of the I love the scissoring. I mean, I guess it depends because I'm acclaimed in the whole scissoring mark, like being all
Yeah.
that, but I'm not an OC, I'm not an OC mark. So it's like those are two levels of the comedy aspects of the wrestling, and different tastes, different strokes for different folks. So like I can do the acclaimed comedy level, I can do Jericho comedy level, but for some reason, like the Danhausen and OC stuff doesn't hit for me.
Gotcha, and it hits for me.
Yeah, right.
That's
okay.
That's that same thing. Yeah, I feel like we need in general, not just obviously this is not a wrestling podcast,
Right.
but I feel like in general, like whether it's politics or religion or a lot of things, we need to be respectfully honest with each other about that kind of stuff. Like there's things where like I feel like the empty cans make the most noise. It's usually the extremes of just like AW and WWE are a great example of like Republican Democrat or like left East Coast West Coast, whatever it is. Do you feel like we're losing the ability to accept each other's opinions, or are we doing more? Like is social media making this worse, or do you think that we're actually, or is social media helping us see each other's opinions better?
No, social media is dividing it more, I feel like, because you're essentially becoming like gang warfare and teaming up, and I don't know what's going on with Threads or whatever. Is that kind of trying to just mimic Twitter, to try to create their own thing after all that? So it's like you're finding like you're almost, and there's talks of like parallel economies. So it's like, there's so much more division than needs to be. So social media, I think, is a war zone of division and gang warfare because, the whole cancel culture you have, it's a trickle effect. If someone, tries to say something and then gets canceled, then you have, whether it be whatever side of the line you're on, it's power in numbers, good or bad, whatever way you're looking at. Look at Jason Aldean right now. Look at the support he's getting right now for this ridiculous whoever started that trend on him to try to cancel him. And then you just see all the wave of support that he's getting, and then other people essentially, picking on what side of the line they stand on. So the social media is quick to team up. It's quick to divide.
It is. Just as much as you're able to find people that agree with you, you also can find quite a few people that don't.
If they're not bots.
If they're not bots. And there's that thing. And I have a theory about there's a lot of people I think that regurgitate a certain narrative on things, they're not even getting paid, although there have been like bot farms where there's a bunch of people using a bunch of different accounts to do stuff and they're getting paid to do it. But I think there's a lot of people out there, they're not getting paid in money. They're getting paid in reaffirmation. They're getting paid in likes. They're getting, it's the negativity sells. Negativity gets clicked. If I post like, I had a really good day today. Oh, I really enjoyed that vanilla shake today. And I won't get anything, but I'll say, man, McDonald's vanilla shake is terrible. It sucks.
It's giving me the runs.
Right. If it's where, I don't think it's working. But the tinfoil hat, though, specifically about the Jason Aldean, I'd never heard of Jason Aldean until this controversy. And, there is such a thing as the Barbra Streisand effect. When Barbra Streisand was complaining that people were invading her privacy by taking pictures of her mansion, everybody then decided to go look at her mansion. So it's like by complaint, and I wouldn't put it past a publicist to kind of create what I've in literature, they call this character the raging heathen. Are you familiar with raging heathen?
Mm-mm.
It's a trope that's common. It was used in morality plays, and it's commonly used in literature and in like television shows and theater, where if you want to push a certain message or you want to
Mhm.
get the audience on your side, you create a despicable character that believes the opposite.
Right.
And so you almost feel guilty by associating. Like, let's just hypothetically say we create this horrible, grotesque individual who believes the opposite of what you're trying to push.
MJF named?
Yeah, maybe they're wearing a scarf. Maybe they got orange hair and used to be on The Apprentice. There's a lot of different characters that you could use, and you get them to push a certain narrative that's opposite to what you want people to side with, and that then they automatically like, yeah, I don't want to be associated with this person, so I'm going to side with this, or they threaten something that you want them to support. So I wouldn't put it aside somebody to, again, this is total tinfoil hat. I mean, this
Right.
is, but where they go, well, let's have a few people hate on Jason Aldean just to generate more hype about it, whatever. But I do feel like, do you feel like that I mean, that kind of thing is only effective if there's a lack of critical thinking in society. Do you feel like we are struggling with critical thinking in our society?
The story you kind of, as you're talking, reminded me, the one that stuck out. But I mean, this happens all the time. You come to find out like someone staged something, but that actor getting mugged in Chicago or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Jussie Smollett.
whatever, I don't know who it
Yeah.
was, and then it come to buy, I was like his friends, and he pulled this whole thing, and it's almost like a publicity stunt. But I'm like, you got to be kidding me! People are that desperate to really to draw attention to them. It's easy, yeah. Especially nowadays with mainstream media being so tunnel vision, so manipulative, you have to be a critical thinker and go down your own rabbit holes, and do your own research. Because I mean, it was crazy. I mean, this was a few years ago or whatever. There's a clip online of news from all over the US saying the same verbiage word for word. And so it's like, wow, that's manipulation 101. And that is like trying to brainwash people. So you have to think outside the box, and you have to do your own research without just reading a headline and thinking it's true. Or someone, oh, I saw this down there. Did you? Well, what's the whole story? Well, I don't know, I saw it. It's like, so it's now more than ever, you have to kind of be your own source, and not just read everything or believe everything you read, and not just see one thing and believe it. You got to kind of fact check it.
Yeah, but isn't that tough for most people? Especially people
It's
working
exhausting for sure.
a 9 to 5 job. They come home, they're
So exhausting.
tired. The last thing they want to do is have to go Google something after they hear something on the news. It's
Well,
like,
no, that's what you talked about, Lori, doing stuff, just sticking local. I mean, that's
yeah,
a great first step to do that, because live in your bubble, be informed of certain things, but live in your bubble of what's going to affect your day to day.
yeah,
Don't worry about if certain things that are literally 100% out of your control, that will hopefully never affect you on certain levels. Why would you let it contribute to any additional added stress in your life?
yeah. You're almost taking on the toxicity,
Right.
and it's almost like if you go looking for it, you're gonna find it.
Well, that's all you see online is negativity.
Yeah,
And I don't know how negativity ever triggers triggers good moods. So,
well,
yeah.
I'm still waiting for the day for someone on Twitter or Facebook to go, I felt one way, but after you dunked on me, I've changed my mind. So thank you for that.
Right.
Nobody's ever said that. It's like, oh, you dunk on me, I'm gonna dunk. It gets into this big thing, and but don't you think it's tough though for people to not, like, they want to know what's going on, they want to feel like they're informed, and it's almost like, because like a lot of times when someone would say a certain political or social, they'll say something, and I'll ask them about it, and they
Mm-hmm.
kind of homina, like they really don't feel that way, they just are regurgitating something they've heard. And I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm really interested in why they feel that way. And it feels like I wish that our mainstream media was a little more as objective as possible in like not brought to you by Pfizer or, not so captured, because I feel a real need for, hey, just tell me what's going on. Give me the
Yeah.
facts. Let me figure out how I feel about it. But don't try to tell me, and don't hide stuff from me either. Don't try to, don't be the kid that tries to tell mom and dad, so what happened was, like, just tell me what actually happened. Um, do you think mainstream media is done? Like, it's nobody trusted anymore?
I haven't trusted it in a long time. I was never a news fan regardless, so
Hmm.
I always did not like seeing or watching it or any of the seeing it on. It was more of just in passing, but I've listened to like a daily podcast that has like 15 minutes of news. I usually listen to it most days just to be informed on certain levels of things,
Hmm.
but almost every time it doesn't bring me joy. It almost it makes my heart rate race. So it's
Yeah.
like it's one of those like it's is it worth it because you're staying informed, but also it's not necessarily bringing you happiness, or it could be reverse trigger, making you like more upset or more resentful or more angry towards a certain topic, let's say you whatever you believe in. So um I think everyone should be avoiding the mainstream media at this point because
Mhm.
it's been so misleading, especially during this crazy pandemic era.
Yeah,
um
it's damaging to mental health to get caught
yeah,
up in that.
very damaging.
I There is, unfortunately, though, there is something to, I mean, just looking at podcasting, how difficult is it to be a positive podcaster in where, like, Jim Cornette and Eric Bischoff and Disco Inferno, they're getting they're getting so much more response. Granted, those are three people that have been in the industry a long
Right,
time,
right.
but, like, I find, like, these hot takes, or these, the negative takes, and there is such a thing as hate watching.
Hmm.
How hard is it to stay positive when, like, negativity sells? Negativity gets the clicks. A lot of times it's they're clicking so they can tell you off, or how much you
Right.
suck, or how much you're wrong. But it's like it generates more of a reaction. What would be your advice to somebody that's doing a podcast but trying to keep it positive?
I see, me personally, I don't even go down those negative rabbit holes. Like I
Mhm.
don't even cross shop per se
Yeah.
because it's not worth my time. And so it didn't bring me joy. I know Crayfish was more involved in like, oh, let's see what Conan or this podcast or this is saying. Like it wasn't worth my time. I was working on the small wins. And so
Yeah.
what was our goal? And so the goal was to try to bring light into a negative industry. And so
Mhm.
let's just say, if we had one person, I said it low, I was like, if we had one person that was impacted by something that we did, that was a win. Like that would keep
Yeah.
me going. And so we're not millions of views, we're not that, so it's a small micro, but the small micro wins meant uh more than anything really, because you can direct impact. And same
Well,
thing like with
yeah.
like I'm posting on Instagram, like when our first blue check, I remember our first repost was from Wardlow many years ago, or when we
Mhm.
first started early on. And then full circle, we interviewed him months and well over a year later. And so now when we're posting on Instagram, okay, yes, not thousands of people are looking at our
Mhm.
story, but you look at the percentage of blue check marks of who are watching our stories on Instagram. That was, a bigger win to me than 500 people seeing my story. If I
How about
saw
the
five
shout
check
out from
marks,
QT Marshall? I mean, that, or
yeah,
Marshall. I
yeah,
mean,
small wins. Well, I mean, that
yeah.
was huge, but like, think obviously, as if you want something to grow, you got to think big picture, but to stay focused, you got to focus on the small wins. And what really
Mhm.
what's the backbone of why you're doing it. You
And
know,
you said it on the part one, the comparison's the thief of joy. I think it was you that said that, or somebody said that recently. That
the what?
comparison is the thief of joy. Like when you compare yourself, or maybe it was somebody else. But
I don't remember saying something about joy. I don't remember if I said that or not.
well,
But
we're gonna pretend you said it.
all right, yes, that's great.
Comparison is the thief of joy. I think a
Yeah.
lot of times if you compare yourself to somebody else, where versus comparing who you were yesterday, that
Mhm.
you just focus on your own growth
Right.
is what's more important. And how tremendous is it to have Wardlow or Thunder
Yeah.
Rosa, to have a meal with Thunder Rosa, or have QT Marshall shout you guys out, and
We
or
didn't think that would happen when we first started. So yeah.
and to have MJF take the time to stop, roll down his window, and call you guys the drizzling shits, which that is a love letter from MJF.
Badge of honor. It's a badge of honor.
That's a badge of honor.
Were you in the chat when he came in the chat too?
I had to have been.
So there was this one show where he came in the chat, and I did some recon after the fact, and it was his YouTube, because he has a secret YouTube of some of his old promos.
Yep.
It's got to kind of go down a little rabbit holes finding it, and I knew it was him because he talked about the margaritas that we bought him too. So he came in our chat and started talking smack to Crayfish, and Crayfish took it. Unfortunately, he took it personally. He's like, even MJF says I talk too much. I'm like, dude, that's why I love you, bro. You're outgoing and talking, and that's why you're so good at what you do with what we were doing on Dynamite. So I'm like, don't take that personal, please.
Yeah,
so.
we just got to have a little button we press, like "Shut up, Crayfish" or something, like just pop up or something, or the little
shot clock,
a little shot clock, a little timer, or the little dancing a little fish animation come across. But no, that's cool, and I hope you didn't take it personally, because the opposite, because you guys, going back to the balancing thing, you guys balance each other very well on that show.
Yeah, it's I got to keep him focused, because yes, it's one of those craving more and more reaction or more views, or chasing the likes essentially. And so, and I would just send him screenshots. I'm like, look at these comments that we're getting on like an interview from, I remember the Preston Vance interview we did. Specifically, I was going through my phone a few days ago of just some of the screenshots of people commenting of just how amazing the interview was, and how great it was to hear these stories that you guys talked about with him, and that relatable. So I'm like, even though big picture, let's say it's not like, interviewing Chris Jericho or whatever it may be, like, but these people are being impacted individuals, not bots or not randoms, and they're commenting, and they're benefiting from work we've done.
Yeah, it's genuine too.
Yeah.
The comment, like, I'd rather have 5 genuine comments than 1,000 just generic.
Right.
You can go buy likes and comments if you want, but it's not genuine. Look at the community that you created with the inner marks. Look at the genuine, we still talk to Brian Raz and the Scoot,
right.
But it's like you create a community of people, and that takes time to grow,
right?
But it's genuine, and I think people do seek that out, because everybody, anybody can tune into Jim Cornette's thing, or somebody else, so and so's thing, but I think with any community that you build, any social media, if you're getting those genuine positive responses, like Will Hobbs, his comment to you guys, there's clearly a reputation there. There's clearly like I always go look at AJ Awesome. He's the kid that I've actually had him on Mental Health Mondays, and what was really cool is how people like Cody, and they know who he is. Like TK lights up when he's on the press call. Like that kind of thing. And I know Dynamite Download is going to get those press passes at some point. I know that's going to happen, and like you might have to you might have to do a special stint on QTV first, but get a little Banaka.
That's all right. I love QTV.
You got to get a little Banaka from Aaron Solo, or listen to a rap from Harley Cameron. But just
I'll take a few sprays of the breath mint.
Yep. But just kind of getting in general, to relate to the non-wrestling fans listening, the I think a lot of time in life, whether it's your podcast or whatever you're working for, I agree with the notion that you totally said about the comparisons to Thief of Joy. No, but isn't there something to just if you focus on your own growth, your own person, and you don't compare yourself to anybody else except for where you were yesterday. Like I'm on a weight loss exercise program. If I compare myself to who I was 20 years ago, I'm never going to be like that. But if I, hey, I did this today. I was able to do this. I did half a mile today. That kind of thing. I feel like that's important. Would you agree that that's probably important for setting goals?
Like circle back to that small wins, small victories,
Mm-hmm.
moving a stone at a time to move a mountain. And it's one of those encouragement things that my mom, like, with her weight loss journey, I'm like, when she told me she lost this amount, I went downstairs and picked up a weight and I'm like, feel how heavy this is. This is off your shoulders. This is off your knees. This is how much, put it in perspective of like that. And so that's a lot. So, it's, I try to focus on, the small impacts go a longer way to me than the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
On our Bronco page, we'll get messages and like, oh, I'm having trouble with this. What do you recommend? And then they're just like, oh, thank you so much. I don't know who you are. Like we've crossed paths, but I'm okay. I'm happy to help you. And if you're getting getting answers and getting a good result from what I'm giving you, like that makes it might be 30 seconds of my day just to respond to someone, and if they send me a thank you and a smiley face, like I feel like that's a good token that will help my mood, and just help, it's a small win versus, let's say, I open up my page and I have 1,200 followers. Like, okay, that's a big number, but no one's commenting or messaging me or saying great job or whatever. What's the point? I'd rather have the micro wins.
Maybe we could get Crayfish doing the NPC thing, like that one girl where they have you heard of that on TikTok?
No.
Where she just whatever, like she's getting like 10,000, like almost 1 million subscribers, and all she does is just read whatever that is in chat and just act it out like an NPC, like nom nom nom. Oh, hello, nom nom. That you had to get that. If you didn't see it, you wouldn't get the joke. But it's just, it's weird what gets popular sometimes. Like like the kids that I teach, they're into the Skibbity toilet, and I'm like, what in the world is that? And then I was horrified when I actually learned what that was. It's an animation thing where this guy is singing ska or scat singing or something from a toilet, and whatever. Okay, it's like, all right, that's popular. But right. I feel like there is something to having that chemistry. You guys, the last episode of Dynamite Download, that other guy you had on besides Crayfish, you had great chemistry with him. He seems to really...
Oh, Bonds, yeah.
Bonds. And the other guy, the more recent guy, too. He seemed to have a really good take on a lot of things. Yeah. What was his name? Mind Runner, I think his name was.
Yeah. I don't reckon... Yeah, he wears a scarf and...
talks a lot of smack.
The heel, so...
Bonds was great too. Bonds really, I want to know what I hope. Have you heard from him at all? Is he staying in touch?
Him and I chat a little bit. I was trying to encourage. He's in Ohio, and most recent thing he sent me was that Brian Cage promo that he sent, because he was always a big Brian Cage fan.
Yeah,
and so we were talking about him recently.
That's cool. It may be cool to get him some of his old booking by Bonds.
I know, hot takes.
Get him on.
Well, I want to not to circle back on DD, but we still got to find a perfect time to do a draft, and I want to get him, get a group of the marks to do a draft. That'd be fun.
The inner marks. Full Tilt Deb will do it. Of course, Full Tilt Deb will win.
Right.
Of course. she comes in and just steals the whole thing. Well, SPD, this has been fantastic. Boom, boom, boom. And it's been cool. The shades are going back on. But at least for now, but we got to get behind the shades.
That's right.
I think this is a phenomenal part 2. We're almost clocking in at an hour 20, actually a little over hour 20. But thank you so much. This has been great. And I'm excited for Dynamite Download's future. And
thank you.
I feel like we really went there in a lot of stuff. And I have I have my reading homework to do. I've got my cold shower to take, and I'm going to flop on the floor when I try to plank and think about how grateful I am when I'm eating carpet. Oh, wait, that came out wrong. That came out very wrong. But anyways, any final words of wisdom for those listening to part 2?
I would say starting your day off with a great intention has really been beneficial, and find what works for you. Whether that be opening a book, taking that cold shower, listening to a meditation, which I use the Calm app, 10 minutes a day, daily meditation, whether it be, sitting outside in the sunlight for 10 minutes of the day, drinking your coffee just in peace. Find something that works for you in the morning that really can set your day. Don't start your day running with a chicken with their head cut off, rushing around, getting in the shower, grabbing breakfast to go, because setting that you time to kick things off in the morning has been very beneficial for me. And I encourage people to find that before the noise of the day starts.
Yeah.
And also I'm guilty of it, opening my phone when my alarm goes off and kind of going down the emails or the texts. But it's a goal of mine is to turn off the alarm, keep the phone away, do the you time, and then tackle the phone when you're done with your you time to kick things off. So find something to kick your morning off strong so you can have a great day the rest of the day.
Love it. Great words of advice. I might even have to record, from the neck up or waist up, my first cold shower. You can hear me cuss you out. But yes, that great way. Start your morning because, you start off on the right foot. You heard it from the SPD and the AA Ron, aka Mind Runner. And this has been Mental Health Mondays, part 2, Behind the Shades of SPD. Have a great one.
Thank you.
Catch new episodes of Mental Health Mondays every Monday morning at 7 a.m. Start your week off with a smile and some inspiration.